But yeah, today, so we're doing 4 workshops across the next 4 weeks. I guess the goal, the reason why we're doing it is we were playing around last year with like, do we do a challenge first up, you know, when everyone's motivated and whatnot. But we steered away from that because although I know you guys a lot of the time love challenges, I don't love what challenges are always about because it sort of breeds that mentality of like going hard for a short period of time and then falling off the bandwagon a little bit. Whereas, so we decided to do workshops to try and more give you the tools to be able to utilize, you know, throughout the whole year and hopefully beyond that, instead of just, you know, going hard for 4 weeks and then feeling like you're, you know, falling off any habits or anything like that. So that's why we decided to do it. So the next 4 weeks is really going to be about just trying to give you guys all the tools. Hey Basil, coming down. Giving you guys all the tools to be able to successfully hit goals that you want throughout the year and finish the year, you know, in a better position than you are right now, depending on, you know, what it is that you want to get out of the year. So I'm recording it, but none of you guys are in it, and probably it'll go flat halfway through, knowing me. I looked at it yesterday and I was like, it's getting close to flat. I actually don't know how to charge it. Okay, we'll give it a go. But today is really about the foundation. So today is about, as you know, about mindset, which is a pretty broad, loose term, and also sleep, okay? So they might seem a little bit sort of not together, but they really both do form the foundation of success with your health and actually pretty much anything. The biggest one for me is sleep. Like I've had a lot of problems with sleep, and I'll go into it a little bit more later on maybe. So I'm like pretty passionate about that part of it, and also about the mindset. Like I said, it's a loose term, but we're going to sort of try and get a little bit of understanding about what that means for us this morning. So the first part of today, there's going to be a couple of exercises that we do along the way for yourselves. So if you've got something to write in, perfect. If you don't, I've got some pens and paper here, or phone or whatever is also fine. So the first part is going to be on the mindset. Okay, so some of you will probably have a really good understanding of this, probably more understanding than me. Some of you, it might all be new to you. But hopefully the exercises that we do help you sort of move forward. So the brain is really the CEO, is the governing body of our results. Okay, we can have all the goals in the world, but if our brain is not aligned with that, then we're not going to be getting there. And that's partly because, or largely because of our subconscious brain. So our subconscious brain is formed largely from when we're a child, okay, really in those formative years where we're just taking everything from the world in and we're making it mean something that's not necessarily logical, not necessarily true in our adult self. So as a parent, a lot of you are parents, obviously we're all really aware of how our actions affect our children and the people that we're around. So a couple of examples that I've seen in this context of how a subconscious brain can work for or against us. A really classic one is a client that I had for a number of years. He had a goal. He was, like, even in his own words, he was quite overweight, and he had all the tools, all the knowledge. He had my help, he had other help to try and lose weight. He was an educated guy. He always had this goal of getting to a certain weight. And even though he came in, he trained, he was really consistent with training, he just never got there, okay? And it was like, what's going on? And for him, I ended up actually referring him out to a psychotherapist, and that was sort of only once he started doing some work on the subconscious and what was holding him back did he start getting the results, okay? Because if you have a blockage in your subconscious, if there's something not allowing you to work through to your goals, then you're just going to keep going round in circles. Okay, so perhaps he saw himself as, he identified himself as the overweight guy. Maybe all his friends, you know, he would be the laughter of the party or whatever, and that's how he identified himself as. If that's built into the subconscious, you're just not going to get through to it, okay? And that's like a really cliched example of an overweight person, but it can be with anything in your life. There's a saying there by Aristotle, okay, give me a child until he is 7 and I will show you the man. So that just really shows us, and this is fairly consistent across most like psychology, psychotherapy literature, that those first sort of formative years really, really determine or can be big determinants of how we live our life, okay? But we're not stuck in that, and that's what today is going to be about, okay? So today is going to be about identifying perhaps some limiting beliefs around any areas of our life, and then the first thing is trying to identify them to start off with, and then the bigger part of the process and the work is trying to rewire those beliefs. So when we are a child, okay, we basically decide what we think about ourselves, what we think about others, and what we think about the world. And like I said, we make these decisions based on protecting ourselves at that time. Okay, so they might work for us when we're older, or it might work against us. So just some more examples. And basically, going back to the subconscious brain, so the subconscious brain has been said to make up about 90% of our daily lives. Okay, so everything that we do on autopilot comes from our subconscious brain. So whether you turn right at the lights, whether you turn left at the lights, whether you pick up your toothbrush with your right hand, with your left hand, how you respond to a certain stimulus, so pretty much 90% of our life is on autopilot based upon that childhood conditioning, okay? Our responses to stimuli. So you can see, if you look at that and you think about 90%, that's a massive part of our day, and that's to do with a stimulus and how we automatically respond to that stimulus. So if we look at that, you can probably agree that if that 90% is working against you, then you're up shit creek, okay? And part of it's going to be working against you, part of it might still be working for you, okay? In terms of where you want to get to. So just a few more examples of how powerful the brain is and how important it is to try and be aligned with what's going on there with our goals is the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. Does anyone know him? Yeah. So he was a chiropractor, and he was in training for I think it was like an Ironman event. Okay, it was some sort of triathlon event, and he got hit by a car. And he basically got told that he needed a metal rod down his spine to be able to walk again ever. He made the decision that he wasn't going to have that metal spine surgery, and that he was going to fix himself. And it sounds woo-woo maybe for you if you haven't sort of done much of this stuff before, but he spent I should know the time frames, but he spent months anyway of going into really, really deep meditation and visualization about trying to be able to walk again without that help, without that surgery. A few months later, he was back on the bike, okay? But actually not just walking, but he was back training again against all doctors' orders. And it was literally because he believed so much that he could do it through visualization. And because of that belief, so whatever we focus on, okay, our body creates the physiology for it to happen. So that's why belief, whether it's negative or positive, is really, really like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, if we think we can't do something, just like Henry Ford said, okay, whether you can, or whether you think you can or you can't is true. That's not exactly what he said, but because if we believe we can, then the body creates the physiology, the hormones, the autonomic nervous system to be aligned with that. Okay, the body doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. So that's why practices like gratitude, just as an example, can be so powerful, because if we can connect with that and we really start to feel that, okay, it sends out the same messages as though if we actually have that in our life, okay? So even if you're going to lie there and be so grateful that you're lying in a resort in the Bahamas right now, okay, it's going to create the same feeling in the body as though you're actually there. And that's how the brain works, okay, in the placebo effect and the non-placebo effect. So the non-placebo effect is, if a patient gets told that they have a month to live, but it's actually a non-diagnosis, so it's a wrong diagnosis, and within a month, a lot of the time they're dead, even if it was a wrong diagnosis, okay? Because you tell someone that, and then you start creating the physiology for that to happen. Does that make sense? And it's been shown over and over again. If you want to look deeper into that, it's one of his first books, You Are the Placebo, is like the most powerful book ever on that subject. So you can probably think about times in your life, maybe, that sort of run those parallels. So if think about a time in your life where someone has told you something, that you can do something, and if you have the belief that can happen, you normally take the actions to make that happen. But also the other way around. So if someone tells you can't do something, okay, maybe you sprained your ankle, okay, maybe 20 years on, you're still holding on to that, I sprained my ankle 20 years ago, okay, and I can't run because of that, because maybe someone at the time told you it's going to affect you for the rest of your life. If that happens, then you just start taking those actions for that to happen, okay? In that really simple example, okay, you've got a sprained ankle, someone tells you you're not going to be able to run again, you're probably not going to go through the actions to start trying to run again, okay? Then you've got no chance of running again. So it's just these feedback loops, positive or negative, that we can create in our lives. And obviously we want to try and create as many positive ones as possible. I've put there a classic one for me is sleep. Like I said, we're going into sleep after this. But just as an example, it's not quite the placebo, well, it is sort of the placebo effect, but it's showing how powerful the brain is. If I have a bad night's sleep, okay, let's say I'm up a lot of the times throughout the night, I really try not to look at the clock. If I see that it's 2:30 a.m. and I get up at 6 a.m., then I know that I've only slept for 3.5 hours. And if I know that, I know, fuck, I've slept for 3.5 hours, I must be so tired today, okay? And then I create the actions to be tired. I might not train, or I might not train as hard. Maybe I make shittier decisions with my food. Maybe I I'm not thinking as clearly with my work. But if I don't look at the clock and I don't know that I've only had 3.5 hours sleep, it's not breeding into that psychology, okay? So that's just like a really simple self-example for me. So the brain is really our governing body. So you can see if you have a goal with your health, we'll stay focused on health, and if you feel like you've had that goal for a while and you feel like you've been going around in circles with it, okay, then it might be your brain stopping you from doing that, okay? And that's what we're going to try and explore a little bit for the next 40 minutes or so. All right, so like I said, the first part of any of this sort of unraveling process of our beliefs is first of all like the identification. Okay, we can't change anything unless we're aware of something happening. I've done a lot of this over the last 4 or 5 years. I sort of started participating in psychotherapy about 6 years ago, probably. I was pulled in with a partner at the time, and from there it was like, there was probably 2 or 3 years of pretty intense, like weekly psychotherapy, where there's a lot of this unraveling, and then since then it's been more sporadic when something comes up and I feel that I need to do some work. But it really does, first of all, come from the identification and of trying to understand yourself, okay? And once you understand yourself as well, then you can understand your place in the world, you can understand what's holding you back, you can understand your relationship with others better. But I'm definitely not a psychotherapist or anything, so I'm not going to go into that too much. But what we're going to do now is a little exercise for yourselves, and it's about getting to know your thought patterns a little bit. So you can see up on the board, we've got a belief is simply a practiced thought. Okay, so the practiced thought is basically neurons firing together, and it becomes really trained. Just like when you start squatting for the first time and you haven't squatted before, okay, it's going to feel really dodgy at the start. You might not know what you're doing, you might feel really unstable. But then as it becomes more practice, it becomes more fluid. Same with juggling, okay? You feel unco at first, and then you start connecting those neurons together, and it starts creating synapses, and then all of a sudden it's more fluid. It's the same with our beliefs that come from our thoughts. The more we practice it, then the more it gets ingrounded in us, okay? And the more likely it's going to be to go straight to that thought. So most of our conditioning from our childhood is creating these thought patterns, okay, about ourselves and about the world. So what I want you guys to try and do, and it might come to you naturally, you might not be able to get anywhere with it, okay? But I want you to start thinking about these things, okay? So I want you to start thinking about some themes of these things, of how you think about them. So about yourself, especially in the context of health, okay? So I'll run through some very rough examples after. About others, what your sort of themes are with thinking about others, about the past, about the present, and about the future. So as an example, okay, and everyone's going to be completely different. But about self, maybe the themes are proudness. Maybe the themes are embarrassment. Maybe the themes are timidness. Maybe the theme is whatever, okay, you get my drift. About others, maybe it's judgmental, the themes that you think about if you're thinking about others. Theme is like what you can identify as happening a lot, okay? It's obviously not going to be all the time because every situation is different, but there will be themes for sure, okay? About the past, maybe it's regret, maybe it's proudness again. Future, maybe it's anxiety, maybe future, you don't even think about the future, okay? So what I want you to do is just spend 5 to so minutes about doing a little bit of writing about those 5 themes, okay? And like I said, it might come to you really easily, it might not at all. Don't second guess yourself, go with your gut instinct. Gut instinct is normally right, okay? And then the brain will sometimes block that. I'll just shut these doors out the back, guys, and put the aircon out here as well, so hopefully you get a bit more of it. There you go. Good, thank you. You can use words, sentences, whatever feels right, guys. Just got a couple more minutes and then you can continue on later on if there's more that you want to go into. Oh, perfect. Cool. Thanks, man. See you Monday. All right, we'll leave it there, guys. So feel free to continue on later. Who found that hard? Yep. Others found it a bit easier. So whether you found it hard or easy, doesn't matter. But it's a really good starting point just to start noticing what your thought patterns are on a sort of broad scale. Did everyone get something down about self? Yeah. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at one of those thought patterns, and I want you to try and find one that doesn't necessarily serve you in terms of working towards who you want to be. So it can be about self, it can be about future. And I want you to look into it and try and connect where that belief may have come from. Okay, maybe easiest way to go back is to try and go back to when you're younger. Just as an example, let's say a belief is that you feel like you need to look a certain way all the time, okay, to be loved. If there's that belief, maybe it came from, okay, your parents are always making sure that you did look a certain way and for applauding you when you had your shirt tucked in and you're prim and proper. Okay, that's a simple example. But I want you to go back and see if you can identify where the initial sort of process was, the initial conditioning for that to start happening. And then what I want you to do, and you may or may not be able to come up with something, and it may or may not be true, doesn't matter. Like I said, go with your gut instinct, okay? Try not to second guess yourself too much. First thing that comes into your brain is often the thing that we go with. But then what I want you to do is I want you to list all the reasons why that belief might be true, and then all the reasons that it might not be true. So as an example, that one that I just gave you, okay, that we need to look a certain way to be loved. So all the reasons that might be true. Okay, maybe your last partner always applauded you on how you looked and said that they love you so much because of that. Okay, reasons why not. Okay, maybe you can go, oh, okay, how I look doesn't change my financial status. How I look doesn't change my job security. How I look doesn't change how much my dog loves me. How I look, you know what I mean? So I want you to start listing all of those reasons for and against, okay? And try and do it from a person over here, okay? So try and disconnect with yourself, because there's obviously a belief, so you're going to be more prone to looking for the reasons that that align with that belief, okay? So try and do it from a person over here looking in, going, why is that not true? Okay, so I want you to start working through that, and then I'll talk a little more about it. So let's have another few minutes or so to see if you can get some stuff down that comes to you. So first of all, trying to have some guesses of where that belief may have come from. Just focus on one belief. And remember, we want to be doing it on a belief that you feel like might be holding you back. Bad timing, bro. Hey, mate. It's not going to be cold.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. This is my housemate, Hayden.
Hey, Hayden. How are you, bro? Maybe just do sauna and go sauna, cold shower, cold shower. Oh, yeah. It's probably the best, yeah. Because we just emptied it to clean it. Yeah, sorry, I didn't see you were booked in. Yeah, but that's hot now. Yeah. So do like 20 minutes or something in there. Yeah. Go jump in the cold shower, yeah, and then go again. Yeah, and do it as many times as you want. Yeah. Just doing a workshop on mindset and sleep. Yeah. All right, enjoy. The next part to that, when you're ready, is listing down what you would prefer to think. What would you prefer to have in place of that? So on the example of I'm only loved if I look a certain way, it might be I'm loved no matter how I look. Okay, just as once again, a really simple example. Let's go 2 more minutes, guys. People finished. How did you go in terms of identifying and come up with the reasons? Okay, some guesses, some feelings.
I can find the not true ones.
Yeah.
I have like 7 true and 2 not true.
Yeah. So that's like what it...
Yeah, that's exactly why it happens.
Yeah, exactly, because that's your belief, right? So that's what I said, it's going to be hard for you to stand over here and try and look in objectively. And it's like with everything, right? All our beliefs, we always want to find stuff that creates the same, reinforces that belief. So it's really hard to try and break that belief. And because it's so hard because of all the times that we've done that thought, okay? So just like the squat, if you've squatted all your life, okay, then it's hard for me to not know how to do it. But if you've never done it before, then it's hard to create that. So part of changing a belief is frequency of practice, okay? It doesn't happen overnight at all, but it's about frequency, it's about doing it and practicing connecting those new neurons all the time. And the stronger that belief is about yourself, then the more uncomfortable that process is going to be and the more likely you're going to not want to do it, okay? Because you're going to be pushing up against your beliefs, and your beliefs are basically what we hold on to, okay? It's what forms who we are. It's our identity. So the more you're banging into that, the more uncomfortable